Okay, assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time you're watching this and where you are. Basically, this is a video dedicated to the Networkoona shareholders, and it's a video dedicated to addressing many of the concerns that shareholders have been voicing, and it will be a video to address what has been done so far in Networkoona and why we actually haven't been able to move forward on some of the issues. So just like you've previously seen in presentations, we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. Alright, so this is Networkoona. This is a pretty familiar presentations. I'm sure many of you have seen this at the office, but we'll use the same reference going forward. As you guys have probably seen in the presentation, we've talked about how this is a concept that has been around since the days of Mecca, and this is a demographic that has started from humble beginnings to reach peaks in Andalusia, where people from around the world flocked to this demographic for sciences and that sort of thing. And we've discussed that there's a new demographic amongst the Muslim population worldwide, and that this demographic is Islamic at heart and universal in its public approach. And we talked about the bond, how interesting it is that from Saudi Arabia to Morocco to France, Indonesia, all the way out here to the US, that wherever you go there is an instant connection that is built with Muslims around the world. And we've talked about that is actually the core of our competitive edge, and that bond that we will actually use to mobilize different people from around the world to actually use the platform. We've gone through the need and the countless articles and publications that are talking about the interest of this. And by the way, since then there are many more that have confirmed that there's a huge need in the market for what it is that we're embarking upon. We've talked about how what would happen if you put a social network with Muslims, and we talked about that the core of Networkoona is to become that place where actually Muslims can meet, socialize, and conduct business. We've talked about the statistics of how the Muslim demographic worldwide is young, educated, and actually very poised for massive growth. And we talked about the different business models that we are able to tackle, and that some of the networks are tackling at the moment. And funny to see how Facebook's IPO and a lot of the things that were perceived about Facebook have changed, but that is another discussion. We've talked about cost per action joint ventures. We've talked about the virtual suit. We've talked about many ways to play this, and we've consistently said that this is a multi-billion-dollar market, and there are many billion-dollar niche markets. And the question that remains is just how do you actually play this? And we've talked about all this. We talked about where we can go from here. We've talked about the big problem that we actually had, that the big guys are standing there. I mean, to do this, there's no way you can go through the front door. We've talked about that you have to find the back door to get in, and that back door is called open APIs. We've talked about that our business strategy will rely on open APIs, and we've talked about habits. We've talked about basically that you can't just come in and build a social network and just take people away, but you can rather come in and give people already what they're using into their social media and give them rather an aggregation of that. Okay, we will go ahead and give you all your social media into one screen. we've talked about Apple and Android. We have a new guest, which is Windows now, but at that time we were talking about Windows. And we've talked about why mobile, why even build a mobile app. We've talked about the statistics that the brightest mobile engineers are building mobile applications first. We've talked about that actually mobile phones are growing at a rate of 8 times that of PCs. And this is just obvious that the whole future is going to be in mobile. We've talked about the company we hired actually to build our prototype, Shine Technologies. We talked about how this company is a Chinese-American alliance, and the reason we have picked them is because you get world-class programming that is at a much cost-effective manner than it is to do it here in the U.S. We've talked about that these guys are proficient in Java, iPhone systems, PHP, Android, and more. We've talked about agile development, how they would program as the user uses, and a sort of pay-as-you-go model. We've talked about, our investment opportunities and how if we really wanted to do this, if we really wanted to implement all these features we have been talking about, that it would cost us around $18 million. And I'm sure you remember the joke where we said, oh, okay, well, if you had $18 million today, it would be great. If you don't, then actually it's one of the reasons we haven't done all this, because we don't have $18 million. Okay, so we said that we will give people all their social media into one screen. Now, why did I go through this entire presentation again? I want to re-emphasize to our shareholders that our strategy has not changed, and we have been proceeding exactly as we have outlined. But at this particular moment, our engineers in Beijing, which this is an email that I have received recently from John Vanderpool, and in this email, this is what they said. They said, due to outstanding payments for the work that were never addressed, testing and development ceased for some time. Numerous attempts were made by our finance team to reach you, and they did not hear back. If the outstanding payments cannot be made, then we can have team members resume some work. Do you need a complete update on the outstanding payments, or do you have this information from our finance department? Thank you, and I look forward to your response. Basically, guys, right now I've emailed some of you. I don't know if you downloaded it, and also there were many different installment packages. I don't know if all of you guys have opened them and tried them, but there is a prototype right now. We do have an Android prototype and an iPhone prototype that aggregates your social media, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn into one screen. So we have gotten the prototype. However, this prototype needs debugging, it needs testing, and unfortunately, because our engineers are Chinese, we do need to hire an American user interface person here from the Bay Area to give us the user interface touches that our Chinese engineers are not able to deliver. And this is something we have addressed before. And also at the same time, we have been able to retain an office at 50 California, which was one of the most prominent office spaces in San Francisco. We were able to stay in that space for the entire durations of the year, and We've done tons of presentations, and much of our seed money came from being in that office. But unfortunately, we were not able to keep that office because it was no longer possible within the budget of funding that we had. So today we stand at, today progress has been halted. We can't go forward because we're in need of funding to go ahead and do the testing, debugging, and we need to hire a user interface expert to collaborate with Beijing on trimming and finishing this prototype so we can get it ready to get on the iPhone market, and we can get it on the Google Play Store. Now, I do understand that many shareholders have a concern of that we've went over our deadline. We've actually shared with shareholders that we will be able to launch by February of last year, but that is a date that our engineers gave us. That is a date we were not comfortable, but we were confident that we were gonna launch. But that confidence only came from actually unawareness about some of the pitfalls that would inevitably meet a team that's building a software of that complexity to integrate all these social networks. So the team in Beijing did not anticipate the complexity of the project and the time that it would take. So Beijing did take much longer than they said they would. At the same time, our payments were not up to par. We did not, we could not keep up with the payments because our funding got halted, and at the same time, we were not able to hire programmers that could collaborate with Beijing to finish these last touches. So today we stand at a position that's perceivably weak, perceivably vulnerable. With the software has been lagging for a year and a half. But if there's anything we have learned in the past year of doing this, is that there is tremendous need for our product, and we know now beyond the shadow of a doubt that this could be one of the biggest businesses in the next decade. And the ramifications and the political angle that is involved is really so promising that like we're totally excited about this. But we have to be realistic with what it takes to run a startup. We have to be realistic about what we're trying to achieve and the means that we have. Now, I understand that many of our shareholders have been very, very supportive, and they've actually they helped us create and give life to this concept. But at the same time, just like a newborn baby, it needs tremendous amount of nurturing. And a startup is not an event, it is a journey. And we have communicated many times over to our shareholders our problems, and we've communicated the obstacles we had. We've communicated that we've had financial crises, but and we have offered deals and buy offers that the shareholders can come in and not only increase their stake, but help the company continue on its operations. But unfortunately, none of the shareholders have come back, and and rebought shares or increase their stake, which is it is not obligatory for any shareholder to come back and invest, but at the same time, I'm calling to the to that first excitement, or to that first reason of why our shareholders even invested in us. I want to tell them that reason that they have even put in money in the beginning, that reason is still here. We are still as dedicated, if not 100 times more, to actually seeing this project to completion, and we will inshallah see it to completion. It is only a matter of who will contribute who will contribute more, and eventually who will reap the most benefit, because it is a for-profit business. And so what I want to tell our shareholders is that we are very, very, very dedicated to see this project through. We have tremendous obstacles. We are out of funding, and we will continue to seek funding from angel investors, from venture capitalists, but other than that, we are doing everything in our power to continue pushing this forward, and we have the utmost belief that this business could have revolutionary ramifications that could create many billionaires over across the world. It could literally move the United States and the Muslim world into a totally new beginning, away from conflict into actually ways that can enrich the Muslim community and move the United States into a more secure environment around the world, and a better understanding of a community that has been stigmatized for the longest. Concerns, and we are open for suggestions, any contributions that can be made. The only reason we're not moving forward with certain matters is because of funding. And that's about it, guys. Thank you for giving the time to watch this video, and assalamu alaikum.